When we think of green spaces in cities, like parks, community gardens, and green rooftops, we often imagine places where people like to go to relax, walk their dogs, or have a picnic. But these spaces do a lot more than just make cities look nice. Urban green spaces actually play a major role in keeping cities cooler, improving air quality, supporting local wildlife, and arguably most importantly, improving our health and well being. But here's the problem: not everyone has equal access to these green spaces. In many cities, wealthier and mostly white neighborhoods tend to have more and better quality parks, while other lower income neighborhoods, often communities of color, are left with fewer options or none at all. This creates a big issue of environmental injustice, where some communities are unfairly exposed to worse environmental conditions and fewer benefits. Here, I will explore what several researchers have found about green spaces and how they affect the public health and our social equity, and what can be done to make access to these green spaces more fair. Firstly, according to a 2016 study by Jennings and their colleagues, green spaces aren't just pretty to look at, they're actually critical for our mental and physical health. They offer what's called cultural ecosystem services, which means they provide social and cultural benefits like spaces to gather, exercise, play, and relax. These kinds of experiences can reduce stress, improve mood, encourage physical activity, and help build stronger communities. But not everyone gets to enjoy these benefits. Jennings and their team point out that lower income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of predominantly minority residents often have fewer parks or green spaces, and the ones they do have may not be as well maintained or safe. This lack of access contributes to worse health outcomes in those communities, like higher rates of anxiety, depression, obesity, and even heart disease. The authors argue that city planning really needs to be more intentional about making sure everyone, regardless of race or income, can benefit from these green spaces. That means creating more parks in underinvested areas, maintaining them well, and involving the community in their design and in their use. In a 2009 study by Boone and their team, they looked at Baltimore and found exactly what Jennings described, which was that the parks were more common and better quality in wealthier, mostly white neighborhoods. In contrast, low-income and minority neighborhoods had fewer parks, and ones that did exist were often smaller or in worse conditions than the ones in the white neighborhoods. This unequal access means that the communities who also deserve these benefits, especially those dealing with higher levels of stress, limited healthcare, or unsafe environments, are the ones who get them the least. Boone and his team argue that this is a clear example of environmental injustice, when some groups are unfairly burdened with environmental harms and denied environmental benefits. They also stress the importance of including residents in the decision-making process. So instead of designing parks for communities, cities should work with them, listening to what these residents actually want and need in their neighborhoods. In another article from 2017, Jennings and colleagues zoomed in on how green spaces connected to health equity, meaning everyone has a fair chance at living a healthy life. They found that parks and green spaces can act as powerful tools to reduce health discrepancies, especially in underserved communities. But again, this access isn't equal, and many neighborhoods that were historically segregated or neglected by city development still do not have quality parks even today. Similar to Boone, the authors argue for more equitable planning and making sure that all communities have access to safe, clean, and welcoming green spaces. This isn't just about building parks, it's about designing cities that support the health and well-being of everyone within the city. Now, there is one more issue to consider. When cities do finally invest in parks and green spaces in underserved areas, it can sometimes lead to a process called green gentrification. That's what Nigolan and Nemeth explored in the 2019 study. And what they found was that when big, flashy parks are added to low-income neighborhoods, they can actually make the area more attractive to wealthier people. So this causes the property values to rise, rents go up, and over time, the original residents, the ones who were supposed to benefit, end up being pushed out. And of course, this defeats the purpose of improving these spaces in the first place. So, what's the solution? Authors of this study suggest taking a just green enough approach, in their words. Instead of building massive, expensive parks, cities can make small, meaningful improvements like adding shade benches, or lighting that help residents without sparking gentrification. And again, involving the community in these decisions is absolutely the key. So we've seen how access to green spaces affects physical and mental health, how it's tied to race and income, and even how efforts to fix the problem can sometimes backfire through green gentrification. But after hearing all this, you might still be wondering, why should you care? You might be wondering, why does this matter? Why does any of this at all matter to me? And maybe you already live near a nice park and you don't think much about green spaces at all. But the truth is, the way our cities are planned affects all of us. When some communities are left without access to parks, clean air, safe spaces to be outside, it creates more deeper health and society and social problems that ripple through the whole city. Higher healthcare costs, more stress on public services, and increased inequality. On the flip side, when everyone has access to these green spaces, the city becomes healthier, safer, and more connected to places to live. Green spaces help kids play safely, give people places to walk and breathe, and create opportunities to bring neighborhoods together. So even if you're not personally affected, caring about fair access to green space means caring about the kind of city and society we all share. So finally, what can be done? All of these studies that we just looked over agree on a few major points. 1, that green spaces are good for our health, both mentally and physically. 2, that right now access to those spaces is unequal, and that's a big problem. 3, cities need to invest in under-resourced neighborhoods without pushing people out. And 4, most importantly, communities need a seat at the table. They should be able to shape what their parks look like and how they're used. So finally, to finish off here, if we want cities that are truly healthy and inclusive, we need to make sure everyone, no matter their income or race, has equal access to nature, clean air, and safe places to gather. Urban green spaces aren't just a luxury, they're a necessity. And with thoughtful, inclusive planning, they can be a powerful tool for building a more and just livable future. And that is everything I had to share with you today. I hope you have a lovely night. Bye-bye.